You don't have to work for another week somewhere to get that 10 to 15,000. You just need some wise business structuring to keep or retain what you've already earned. That's the message. Don't work harder, work smarter.
Welcome to Truly Passive Income. I'm Neil Henderson.
And I'm Clint Harris. And today's guest is Dr. Tod Stillson. He's a physician entrepreneur and a real estate investor. He founded the Physician Entrepreneur Academy, Simply MD, to help doctors build employment-light micro corporations that slash taxes and generate passive income. He's built a diverse real estate portfolio from medical office building to short-term rentals, leveraging those assets to fight burnout and achieve financial independence. Now, he's passionate about helping fellow physicians do the same. So, Dr. Stillson, Tod, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm happy to be with you guys. I appreciate all the work you do. We align when it comes to trying to educate, support, and inspire people to do the most with the income they earn to maximize their footprint and enjoy life.
I love that.
Love it.
Well, listen, I can already tell this one's going to be a great episode. We've been chatting before we started recording. I think we have aligned beliefs, especially about some of the challenges that our white coat physician community and healers are facing these days. And I love what you're doing to pour into that and provide value to that community. Before we get started there, if you will, please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you became that rare combination of healer and business-minded entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I'm a physician for the past 30 years in rural Indiana as a family doc. I've spent 15 years being a traditional employee of a hospital and then 15 years as a 1099 independent contractor. That's really when I got ignited into the micro business environment and began to understand how I could use my earnings to grow my net worth faster and to enjoy life. And at the end of the day, I have a strong belief that independence creates autonomy and agency for physicians, which combats burnout and really is one of the primary factors that have been lost by most modern physicians, where 80% of them are now traditional employees, and that's just not the way it's meant to be.
Wow. What a great opening statement. So go ahead, Neil.
No, so let's dig into that a little bit. You teach doctors about what you've called employment light micro corporation model. So in simple terms, for something that I can understand, I'm not a very smart man, what is a micro corporation for a physician?
Yeah, micro corporation is a single member corporation. That means just the physician themselves are the member of the corporation. And they typically have more than one contract with a source that allows them to earn professional income, right? The asset that they own in that microcorporation is their professional services. And that's sort of built into the equation for doctors. Doctors are much like many other professionals in the U.S. That would be lawyers, doctors, dentists, engineers, architects. They all have the ability to have both be an individual, but also a corporation at the same time. And that corporation doesn't have to be large. It can just be themselves. And many doctors have lost sight of that fact that they have that power, much like their medical degree, much like their licensure, much like their board certification, the ability to incorporate themselves and enter the marketplace as a micro corporation has been lost by many doctors. And I'm shouting it from the mountaintops that they have that power and that agency. And that's so important in the marketplace today.
So what you're essentially encouraging people to do is start thinking of yourself as a small business rather than an employee of a large corporation.
Yeah, and here's how the division used to look like this in medicine, right? You either work for a hospital or a healthcare corporation, or you in private practice. And today, that's not what I'm talking about with a micro corporation. When I'm talking about micro corporation, it could be the private practice model, but that's really a lot harder in the marketplace today. Private practices are. I'm talking about you having your professional services almost like a shield, almost like a cape that you wear, that you enter the marketplace in, and then you enter into or engage in contracts with any agency that wants your professional services, and you do that on a one-by-one basis. For doctors, and a lot of the younger listeners out there listening to this, they'll understand this concept called job stacking. Job stacking involves you taking multiple small contracts that may add up to a full-time position, but you get to pick and choose the hours and the pay that you choose as a contractor to add up those job stacks. And frankly, the job market for physicians is so large and so high today that doctors can can pick and choose the options that they want to serve. And no longer is it location dependent. A lot of times it's location independent. So we have tremendous power in the marketplace today. And if you just understand you have that power, you can create the lifestyle that you want that allows you to thrive as a doctor and hold on to the agency that's so important you've earned.
I love that. So my original assumption was like, okay, we're talking about private practice and the way that they structure, but that's not what we're talking about.
No, well, and I have, so let me just say, there's a lot of doctors, they're best suited to be employees of healthcare corporations. It's not a bad gig. I mean, you get paid pretty well. It's high income, and you can leverage that high income into a great life as long as you don't rev up your lifestyle. As you probably know, that's one of the big issues that doctors have. They rev up their lifestyle and don't save enough. But it can be a good lifestyle. But what I believe is important for doctors is to preserve their agency and autonomy in the marketplace. And as soon as you become an employee of a large corporation, you've lost a large amount of autonomy and as well as agency because you've exchanged that. That's a deal you've made to give up those things so you can get a predictable paycheck that lands in your bank account every week, okay? But what I encourage physicians to do is consider either a blended version of that. That's what Employment Light is. I can tell you about that later if you want, or a total independent version where you work as a contractor, where you might work as a private practitioner, you might work as in the newest models of direct primary care, cash only, take out third parties, just you and the patient, again, like the old style way of doing it. There are so many iterations of options of how you can be a business in the marketplace as a doctor, and I encourage doctors to think through every single one of those.
So my best friend is an internal medicine hospitalist, and he's done exactly what you've talked. He's almost gone fractional, and now he's in the ICU, I believe, 5 to 8 days a month. And then he's also doing like case review, make sure that insurance were paid out. He's also one thing he's done in the past is reviewing VA cases for the local VA hospital. So what you're suggesting is that in those contracted roles, he could do that as an S corporation versus doing it in his own name. Tell us some of the tax and financial benefits of doing it that way. Like, let's land the plane on why. Why would they do it this way?
Yeah. So first of all, they're either going to be incorporated as a professional corporation or a PLLC typically that is in tax as an S Corp. So just to not confuse your listeners, it's not really like it's an S Corp, but it's really a tax classification S Corp as a professional corporation. And what you can do because of that, now the income you're earning is put into the corporation, right? And you pay yourself a self-employment salary. That's a W-2 earning that you pay yourself, but you also have the opportunity to create distributions. And for the safe zone is probably around 60% salary, 40% distributions. The IRS has some rules about that for physicians and other professionals, but generally I say 60-40 split is okay. When you make that 60-40 split, as you both know, the FICA taxes on the distribution are zero, right? So all of a sudden you've been able to take all that money you've earned and put 60% of it only under FICA tax and taxation rules. And now you're going to be able to retain quite a bit of tax savings because you're taking it as a distribution rather than paying the FICA taxes on that. That's just one example. There's a lot of other business structures that allow you to retain more of those earnings because of how that money flows through your corporation. So a W-2 earner, right, they earn the money, it goes through this filtration process, and you get the money in the bank account. You don't have any control. You have very little control, especially as a high-income earner, over how that money flows through. But when you're a business owner, now you can take that money you've earned, you can put it through the right channels that you want, through the benefit plans that you want, through ways to really hold on to some of the taxes through business deductions, right, that are untaxed, et cetera, and including things like I said about the income splitting that allows you to retain more. So at the end of the day, I always tell physicians it's about a 10 to 15% of your income you can retain in that business model as compared to a W-2. That's a general rule.
Just brief clarification. The other 40% is basically a pass-through because it was taxed at the corporate level. And so after it was taxed at the corporate level, now it's coming out as a distribution.
That's correct. There's no
FICA
FICA taxes on it. That's exactly right. And so that savings is, if a doctor is earning about $400,000 a year, that savings is going to range around $10,000 to $15,000. And listen, here's the point. You don't have to do anything to keep that $10,000 to $15,000. You don't have to go work an extra shift. You don't have to work for another week somewhere to get that $10,000 to $15,000. You just need some wise business structuring to keep or retain what you've already earned. That's the message. Don't work harder, work smarter.
Let's hit people in the wallet where this is actually going to resonate with them. On your bio here, I've got that you've mentioned you've saved $70,000 a year by switching from W-2 employee to operating as an S Corp. Like, this is real money, very attainable. And your option is to give it to a government that's probably spending it on things that you may or may not believe in, or keep it. And it can be as simple as you're changing the order of operations as to how and when the capital is taxed and when it's just a pass-through and flows straight to you.
That's exactly right. So I'm sure this is a topic of conversation for all sorts of guests that you have on here, but for doctors, it's a very important understanding that they have the power to do that. And frankly, so many physicians are financially and business illiterate that they don't understand that, they don't know it. And that's part of what I do with PEA Simply MD is empower doctors to know that that's the option. I mean, here's some grim statistics, right? You guys all know doctors make a lot of money. We do. But that money doesn't translate into wealth for doctors. 50% of physicians have a net worth under $1 million, even in their mid to late career. 1 in 4 physicians reach $2 million in net worth, and only 10 to 12% reach net worths of $5 million or more. Based upon how much they earn in $10 to $12 million lifetime earnings, those numbers should be much better and much higher. But doctors rev up their lifestyle, don't save money, and they're just, frankly, a little business and financially illiterate, and it doesn't translate. It's kind of a sad truth.
It's sometimes the only way to adjust is just to stick your face in the fan and face the noise and like recognize it so that we can pivot and move from there. At some point, I want to have a conversation about why you have chosen real estate as an investment vehicle that you want to lean into, but I'm not there yet. Because first, we need to get into the Physician Entrepreneur Academy, because my next question is, okay, you're telling me what needs to be implemented, and S Corp can create significant wealth generation by really kind of supercharge the financial velocity by changing the amount of money that you get to keep and take home. So the question is, for the people that are not advanced in this and they are focused on being a healer and keeping the main thing, how do you implement? How do you learn? How do you network? How do you implement? And I know that you've put together Physician Entrepreneur Academy and Simply MD. So I'm cracking the door here. Blow the door off for us and tell us how people implement and educate themselves on this.
Well, first of all, the simple way is the free way, right? Go to simplymd.com, SIMPLIMD.com, and sign up to get my blog I send out every other day that educates physicians about this. That's really easy and simple. Takes about a 3-minute read every day, and you're going to start to educate yourself about what your options and opportunities are when it comes to this space. I can do a consultation with you, which we provide. I do coaching services. I have courses. I have all sorts of things that allow you to grow in your understanding of this. And I'm happy to support people either indirectly through the blog or to do it directly by talking to them, speaking to them, and coaching with them. But here's the reality for doctors, okay? And my passion, I'm going to just be frank with you guys. I do what I do with PEA Simply MD, not because it's going to make a bunch of money for me. I do it because I love doctors. I love our tribe. I love our people, and I want them to thrive. And here's the deal. The world's a better place when doctors are thriving. They're altruistic. They do good. They make a difference in their communities. And when they're downtrodden by being burned out, they're not as helpful. But when they're thriving, everybody wins across the board. And that's my passion. So these are resources that are not built to monetize. These resources are actually built to help and support. But here's the architecture of what happens to a doctor. And people sort of look on the outside, look at doctors, think they've got it all together. They're smart people. They make a lot of money. But the reality is that for doctors, this is how the journey begins with them, right? They do get high-paying jobs that are either W-2, 1099, or self-employment, but they start with a large educational debt. And so if they don't manage that educational debt up front, it's like a boomerang on them. And then you have a large tax burden, right? Because we know the government it really takes away a lot of the options that high income earners have when it comes to our tax efficiency. And if you sign up to be a W-2 worker, you're like a sitting duck because you have very few options. So then you add to that a lifestyle bump where you're trying to kind of live the life that you think doctors should live. All of a sudden, you've got consumer debt, education debt, high taxes, and your bank account just never seems to grow. Because all of those things consume those things, and the amount of money that sort of ends up landing in a savings account, which I try to encourage physicians to keep it at 20 to 30% of their earnings landing in savings, but frankly, a lot of them are not successful. But when they do finally get money in that savings account, then they can begin that investment journey that involves some of the work you guys do with passive and investing in passive income, right? All of that is sort of enhanced by being a micro corporation, by being a 1099 worker. Like I said, you could add 10 to 15% of your earnings per year into that savings bucket and really accelerate it and then translate it. But at the end of the day, what a doctor, their choices are with that passive income bucket usually come down to three options. One is stock market. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. If you do it wisely and you do it consistently and in an automated fashion, you can do okay. Real estate or start a business. And it depends on how much time and energy and money you want to put into any of those three that matter or make a difference. And real estate ends up being kind of a nice middle ground when it comes to building wealth and wealth accumulation, and then eventually finding financial freedom through that wealth accumulation, where you have time freedom and can live your best life. So that's kind of the map. And that's what I work with physicians on a regular basis, kind of walking them through that map. And it just depends, when I do a one-on-one consult with them, it just depends on where they are in that map and that journey that will determine kind of what our intervention points are, what our coaching points are to kind of get them unstuck and moving in the right direction. I just met with a physician last night. I, again, coach doctors just about every day. And I met with a physician last night that frankly, he caught, about a couple years ago, he caught the vision that he and his wife bought their first STR. They got a lot of people flowing through it. They've already done a cost seg study on that STR. They're already moving into the next STR plan for year 2 next year. They're already moving on to their next STR plan for year 3 the next year because they're catching the vision. And frankly, doctors are smart people. And once they begin to understand the power they have and the asset they have and how they can use it in the marketplace, they take off and they thrive. He is so happy. He is so pleased with his life. He loves his professional life and he loves his personal life. That's what gives me joy. When I can actually come alongside people and help them attain that, it's a win. I know that was a long-winded answer, a lot of information, but it's important to understand that diagram.
Okay, well, let's dig into that a little bit. Because you brought it up. You talked about passive income. So, and the challenge that so many busy physicians worry is that they don't have the time or energy to manage those investments. So what is your advice that you're talking to doctors every day, to a doctor who wants to get into real estate or for passive income, but's concerned about it being a second job? Are there ways for them?
Yeah, quite honestly, it can be a second job depending on how many doors you want to manage and what you want to do. But at the end of the day, what, again, physicians don't always realize is that this is a space that has continuum in it, right? So you can get into real estate through syndication. You can get into real estate through REITs. You can get into real estate through owning the property like a short-term rental, but outsourcing the property management to somebody else. Really, you can get into commercial real estate, you can get into residential real estate, you can get into land real estate. All the above are options, and it just depends on your desire to be, how much time and control you want to be into it. So there's when we say real estate, there's ample options for what your taste and time is when it comes to that. It makes sense. You guys know this stuff, I know, but it's what I teach doctors.
It totally makes sense. I mean, basically, work backwards from the life that you're trying to create, the amount of time, energy that you want to put into it. I think too many people put a focus on financial independence when the focus needs to be on financial time and location independence. And I think that sounds to me like you're coaching people well.
Yeah, as an example, like the physician I was with last night, his spouse is a professional. She's got her MBA, works for a large pharmaceutical company. But as they are building their real estate empire, so to speak, the plan is for her to quit that job and to totally manage their real estate, to use her MBA skills and her business management to manage their assets, not somebody else's assets, right? And that only makes sense. And so I love seeing that because, again, that's the opportunity they have to really build, to your point, build the life that they want. So this is part of that work backwards idea. I always encourage doctors, like, dream with me. What do you want your life to look like in 10 years? What do you want it to look like in 5 years? And let's build towards that and and use those assets to create the life you do want to have.
I love that. I just had this conversation this past weekend. We had a group of friends come into town. My wife ran a half marathon with a bunch of friends, and one of them, her husband's a congestive heart failure cardiologist, and she's going back to get her MBA right now because they have multifamily assets they've been building up for several years. My understanding is I think they're doing the cost segs, taking the bonus depreciation. In fact, I know they are, and it's had a huge implication for them. So now they're leaning into it, and I love that freedom that's being created. I want to ask you an operational question here. We talked about the S Corp on that side of things. When you are looking at, say it's real estate, could be syndication, could be actively investing into your own multifamily deals or something. I love, with bonus depreciation coming back and the benefit of cost seg, it's amazing right now. So I love the real estate space. Obviously, I transitioned from the medical industry to doing this full time. But when you are looking, one thing our listeners may not know, you bought your medical office building. You bought, what is it? How big? It's a let's see.
It's about 6,000 square feet. And so it's about a $1.7 million property. I bought it at around 700,000 and remodeled it. And again, part of the deal was I didn't know I had this option. Hey, I can buy this and I can ask the hospital to rent it from me. So that asset now creates about $100,000 in income for me annually in a very safe lease, right? Like, it's got a 5-year lease with renewables up to 20 years. It's very safe. And frankly, because I just retired from that clinic about a year ago, I'm continuing to earn $100,000 a year by not even being in the building. That's part of a real estate asset.
Not a bad gig if you can land it. Here's my question. Instead of practice, I'll call the tax portion using the S Corp maybe more of a defensive move to protect your capital. If we're now talking about more of an offensive move, and now you're going to take that capital and you're going to send it out to work so that it's getting up and getting out of bed and going to work. And one day you're not going to feel like getting out of bed and going to work, but your money's going to go do that for you. And it's buying future days off. And eventually you buy enough future days off, you don't have to go back to work. When you are playing the offensive playbook that you have, is that being done through an S corporation as well, or is there a different vehicle for that? What does that look like? Is there anything we need to know there?
So I can tell you what I do personally, and this is a little more sophisticated. I have a C corporation that is my business development corporation that I use for that purpose, and that becomes sort of like the clearinghouse for all of my other corporations to work underneath it. I have a total of 10 corporations right now that kind of work in synergy with one another, and so it depends on the level of sophistication that you want to get into when it comes to this. But you're right about how you can maximize those assets by structuring them the right way to interact with each other the right way, right? So you guys are very familiar with that, I'm sure, as well. And so my accountant a few years ago, probably when I started my journey into entrepreneurship, he said to me, Todd, you want to always have 4 tax basically qualifications in your pocket to use. You want a C Corp, you want an S Corp, you want a partnership, and you want your own personal tax. And when you have all 4 of those, we can use those in synergy with one another to usually find the best pathway to keep more of your earnings. And so that business development corporation I just told you about is a C Corp. Okay, so I have a C Corp, I have an S Corp then, I have some partnerships that are in LLC, and I also have my own individual tax.
I'm starting to really understand the value of your coaching program. So talk to me about what that looks like say I'm a physician and I'm reaching out to you and I maybe know not even enough to be dangerous, but I like what I'm hearing. I want to get started. What does your engagement with people look like, and what can the expectation be of what I'm going to get out of a coaching relationship with you, and how long is it going to take me to get these steps set up and kind of change the financial velocity of where I'm headed with my spouse, partner, wife?
That's a great question. So let me first of all say doctors tend to think they're the smartest people in the room. And they also tend to think that, I just need to get pointed in the right direction and I'll be okay. So I offer one-time consultations. That's what a lot of doctors like to do. Meet with me for an hour and we kind of go through some of the stuff I just talked to you about. I charge between $300 to $500 for those one-time consultations with doctors. Depends on how much we get into the weeds in terms of the process. I have a very sophisticated sort of intake form that they complete, a self-assessment that allows me to sort of get a quick probe of where they're at. And then honestly, we communicate and talk about where they are, where their goals are, where they want to go. And we talk about how they can either maximize their financial or their business footprint when it comes to that. For some doctors, it's just, like I said, point me in the right direction, I'll take off. For other doctors, it becomes, I want an ongoing coaching relationship to support that with you. And I provide that either on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis, depends on what doctors want to do and what their preferences are. I'll say kind of the fourth option is I might offer them to another professional. Let's just say we discover, you know what, you just need a good CPA. And I'm not a CPA. And so let me connect you with a CPA, or you need a good attorney. Like, I'll make those connections for them as a professional service to them that I know understand doctors as microcorporations, understand the wealth accumulation needs that they have that we've talked about, and can support them in that journey. So there's a lot of connections that I do. And I guess that comes back to my family practice training and what I'm used to doing.
So what are some common pitfalls that physicians run into when they venture into real estate investing? What kind of mistakes do you see them make?
Well, first of all, I think honestly, they often try and do too much themselves without understanding. And so they miss the point of leaning into professional networks or support teams. And so I usually tell doctors who are entering into this space, you basically need 4 people on your side. I call it your team for the doctors. And the team usually is going to be the CPA or the accounting professional. And I tell them that's going to be your bestie. Okay, so that's the one you really need to align with. The second is a legal professional, usually one off. You're not going to have a retainer with them and talk to them every week, but you're going to occasionally need their services. The third is a wealth accumulation manager, our financial planner advisor. And the fourth is a business coach, which is kind of what I do or support them with. It depends on the doctor, depends on their needs, depends on their plans, how much of each one of those team members that they need. And so it just kind of varies a little bit when it comes to the connecting points to those people, if you will. Okay. And that's an important part. So if they don't put that in place, to your point, if they try and lurch out, again, doctors tend to be self-sufficient. I can figure this out myself. People, if they don't assemble those right team members, they're going to miss some key points. They're either going to make mistakes, or they're going to miss some things like, as you guys know, the Augusta plan. You know about the Augusta plan and the dwelling unit rentals that business owners can do. That'd be a great example of a micro business owner or a micro corporation owner not understanding how they can get some tax efficient money into their home through a dwelling unit rental program that exists as a loophole in the IRS system. But again, it's not even knowing that it exists. The doctor might know it exists, but how to do it, how to implement it, how to document it, how to record it, how to work with their CPA in the process of doing that. Those are kind of the swings and misses that I see with doctors a lot of times. So my heavy coaching point is work with a professional. After you watch what they're doing for a while, I don't care if you want to take over ownership of it yourself later because you're like, oh, I got it. I can do this. But it's just that missing the point of like, you probably don't know as much as you think you know.
Wow. There's a lot going on here and I love it. This is the first one in a while. In my head, I've got 12 people that I know I'm going to send this to as soon as this episode comes out. Good friends of mine that are all physicians. So I'd like to ask a question. We ask all of our guests. We got some very interesting answers and I want to ask in a unique way. Instead of asking you about a favorite book, I want to ask you in your line of work and everything that you're doing with the Physician Entrepreneur Academy and Simply MD, Is there any one book or resource that you find yourself recommending to people more than any other that you think deserves a second look?
Well, I wouldn't say it really depends on the situation and the person, and that's where it becomes an individualized triage and communication about where they're at and where they need. I can tell you a book that's influenced me heavily is Go Giver by Bob Burg, and I really love and am inspired by the idea of the importance of giving back and creating value wherever you are, and really having a missional view of life that a little bit comes from my faith background. And I really have a strong belief in that. And so it's important, I think, to give back. And quite honestly, with PEA Simply MD, that's a bit of what I'm doing. Like I said, it's not a monetizing program for me. It's really about helping people and giving back. And I get the joy out of supporting doctors and helping them thrive and knowing that, doggone it, their communities are better places because of it. So Go Giver goes into that in some detail. That was written about a decade ago, but I think it's a great book.
We're 160 plus episodes in on this podcast, and that's the first time we've had that recommendation. So
It's a good one, though.
once again, I continue to spend money on my book list, and I'll add that to the list.
I have a growing list as well, too. I'm an avid reader and agree with you. So good.
Well, listen, Dr. Stillson, this has been absolutely fantastic. We know you've got the Physicians Entrepreneur Academy and Simply MD. But if any of our listeners want to reach out to you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So first of all, Tod, T-O-D, at simplymd.com. That's my email. So Tod at simply, SIMPLI, MD.com. Send me an email. Happy to talk to them. Go to the website, simplymd.com. They can join up and sign up for the blog, read all the free content that's there. And it's some good stuff going on. And so I'm here to support people. They can email me. I'll answer their questions. I mean, I love, again, the support and appreciate what you guys are doing. This is all important work that you're doing to help people understand, again, not just how they can be, quote, rich or wealthy. It's about thriving in life. It's about enjoying the life that you've got and really learning how to make the most out of what you've earned. And there's a lot of high income professionals or even medium income professionals that can learn a lot from your show.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
This has been great. Thank you.
I agree. I'll just add, this is one of the things that's near and dear to my heart when we get the chance to have this type of a conversation, because I spent 16 years in this industry, and a lot of the people I really care about are the people that are taking care of our community and healing and making sure that the people that we love are still here. And I think the last decade especially has been brutal in that line of work. And I think any chance we have to eliminate any ambiguity through free networking and education is unbelievable. I believe in the law of 100 hours, which is, 18 minutes a day for a year is 100 hours. And that's about the average car commute. So if you spend that time educating yourself on any one subject, you're going to know more than 95% of the population of the world. That's what you're doing. It's what you're leaning into. It's a community that I care about. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And thank you for your energy, and you're doing what you're passionate about, and it's real. And I love that. So
It's absolutely my passion. Thank you.
yeah, for sure. And it's very evident. So Tod, Dr. Stillson, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. Thanks for your time.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you so much for listening and watching the Truly Passive Income podcast. If you liked the show, if you think it would be useful for someone else, the greatest compliment that you could give us would be to share the episode, leave a comment down below, or leave us an honest review. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know down below. And remember, with truly passive income comes freedom of time, place, and the freedom to pursue your higher purpose.